I just wanted you to know, as we've come together and grown as a group, the ever-present threat of zombies has grown too. But by utilizing Freud's theory of the uncanny, I think we can call on this rhetoric in order to better understand our enemy and hopefully defeat them. First, let's take a look at what Freud has to say. Often drawn upon for his psychoanalysis, Freud sheds light on why these zombies seem so scary. Let's see here. Took some scholarly notes. He ultimately defines the uncanny as the class of frightening things that lead us back to the familiar. We often see ourselves in the dead, and we often fear the inevitable. But later scholars like Jensch conclude that the uncanny is equivalent to the fear of the unfamiliar, which I think can also draw into that aspect of the inevitable, because we really don't know what happens when we're dead, let alone when we're sprouting out of the graves. Oh my God. This led me to believe that aspects of the uncanny, although new, i.e., the dead coming back to life, can seem new and frightening and scary. It goes a lot deeper than we think. The uncanny is intersectional in nature, as we as different individuals coming together experience different ideas of the uncanny and what is frightening to us depending on aspects of race, gender, and sexuality. And then it hit me. These zombies might not be the biggest threat in the dawn of this new society that is cultivating before our eyes, but the biggest threat is ourselves. If zombie pop culture has taught us anything, it is the need to reconcile between survivors and understand our differences in order to survive. Time after time in these films, we see groups of people hounded into one area. For Romero's characters in Night of the Living Dead, it was the farmhouse Barbara stumbled upon. And then later on in his works in Dawn of the Dead, it was the shopping plaza. For Boyles, it was the military base and that idea of asylum within the city. Each person had different objectives, although in some cases they were not very humane, that led them to their ultimate demise. There always seems to be a conflict of interest when the interest overall should just be to survive. And 28 days later, Major West offers refuge at a price that the characters aren't aware of. Later we see that he is promised and plans to implement this idea of restoring civilization under their own terms with Selena and Hannah. With Ben and Cooper, it was that fight for leadership and dominance within the group. And their lack of communication is what ultimately caused their downfall. Applying Romero's Night of the Living Dead even further, the death of Ben was a direct correlation to the assassination of MLK and the non-stop injustice of Black people that is still very relevant today. The same can be said with the mistrust of government or lack thereof in The Walking Dead and 28 Days Later. As we face zombies, we're also facing a viral infection by the codename COVID. The prejudice, hate, and divergence, alongside the large mistrust and neglect of the people, all come as a consequence to the lack of wanting to understand and learn about something that is so uncanny, as Freud and Argento say, as it is different from our own experience and our own narratives, but we can know enough to fear it if we were ever put in that situation. Fear of ourselves in a role reversal is very prominent with race in early zombie pop culture, as we see in White Zombie, King of the Zombies, Night of the Living Dead. But as we move on to the more contemporary aspects of zombie pop culture, we see in The Walking Dead, which I only had a free trial booted up on this laptop that I happened to find, so I only got to see the first 2 episodes. But gender is a big aspect in this too. In The Walking Dead, Although the dynamic of the nuclear family is quite literally separated, as Grimes is going towards Atlanta to an abandoned civilization of refuge and help, unknowns to him, Rory and Carl are back on a different base camp with other survivors, including Shane, Grimes' previous co-worker, who is now the father figure of his son, a romantic interest of his wife. The persistence of Grimes to reunite his family emphasizes the importance of the heteronormative family relations as a key feature of popular commentary zombie media, as stated by Oates. In the work's Hearth of Darkness, the author argues that the group of survivors that make up these films are called to reform that can begin a new society devoid of traditional class, race, family, the normal gender structures that we're so used to. But ultimately, we see this call of the nuclear family persist throughout all of this. And the call to the nuclear family also plays into that idea of the separated gender and how they're also represented, and that fear of the role reversal from a patriarch to a matriarch to an abolished society devoid of gender separation, as well as race separation that we see in the earlier films, is that such a big concern and key crucial social commentary. I digress. Romero's Dawn of the Dead has Francine as more of a maternal figure, quite literally, as she is pregnant during this ordeal and is a survivor. Aches from zombies. But she's a survivor that is pregnant and is able to flee alongside Peter, her male counterpart. And this idea resonates a sense of hope within the audience because she can quite literally carry civilization on through her biological pregnancy. This idea of maternal figures is also tried to be implemented upon Selena and Hannah by Major West and his boys, as they quite literally attempt to rape them in order to progress civilization under their own connotations and their own whims. Doesn't work out, thank God. But it still implements that idea that even in a pandemic, women are subjugated to their biological aspects in order to carry on civilization and fill this need of a mother. I think the battery is running low on this device, but I fear that our blogs may be coming to an end soon. But I wanted to reiterate my theory before you go. The uncanny is a fear of the familiar presented in a different perspective, as we see in these zombies and these films and as they crowd around us. But it can be found in our society, or what is left of it as well. In order to defeat these zombies and these threats, much like the virus spreading today as well, we need time to understand and analyze it. The same can be said about our survivors that we have. We need to set aside our squabbles and take time to see each other's sides so we can all formulate a plan and make it out of this thing alive. I'll leave you with that. Goodbye, and stay living, my friend.